everyone, and welcome back to the V Spot. I've been contemplating where to end season 3 and transition to season 4. And what I recently realized is this is exactly the place to do just that. I've been reflecting on season 3, and I've been thinking about where I want to go for season 4. And so much is occurring, and so much gratitude has really, filled my heart and my mind as I've been thinking about the V Spot and what's next. As I've been really strolling down memory lane, if you will, with season 3 and thinking of, wow, so much has occurred in this particular season, I couldn't help but hit on a couple of things, and I want to share it with you to really spotlight some of my favorite moments, what topics I explored, and what I would encourage that if you're just tuning in now, if you are newer to the V Spot, that you consider going backwards, go back in time, because each season provides something very different. Each season provides something very special and unique. And so when I started the V Spot initially, I was really recording episodes in a storytelling fashion, and I was preparing segments before I actually sat to, share. Because I wanted to tell my story, and I wanted to tell my story in a very, I don't know, call it poetic, call it artistic, but I went where I was guided to go for season 1, and it was so profound for me. It ended up being one of the most healing parts of my particular journey, because it became the space where I shared about so much of what led me to be here with you in this very moment. So if you have not already tuned into season 1, I really want to encourage you to go back there. Go back and listen, because you get the tea, right? I spill out so much different stuff about how I ended up even coming to this particular podcast, some of the things that have happened, some of the things that I've continued to struggle with, some of the things that I'm working through, right? Some of the inspiration for why I am even doing this thing. And I think that there's tremendous insight, value, and benefit, because I not only told my story in a way where I am sharing of myself in an exceptionally vulnerable way, right? Which is the point. We're not talking about vulnerability here. We're demonstrating it. But I really leaned into parts of my story and parts of my past and my persona, if you will, that I believed would be beneficial for you. It was my hope that in digging deep and going to some of the most uncomfortable parts of myself, that I would crack something open for you so that you would be able to go there yourself. So there's so much that's there. There's so much richness and depth and pain, right? And truth and courage, vulnerability, trust. And there's a lot that I believe can really lend to some door openings for you. So if you haven't already tuned in to season 1, I suggest going back there. When season 1 comes to an end, I really started to think about, how do I want to up the ante with vulnerability for season 2? Where did I want to go next? And where I ended up going was vulnerable, to say the least, right? I opted to introduce the camera. And that's how we end up with these type of recordings, because I felt uncomfortable to do it. I was in my head about it. I didn't feel like I wanted to show up and be on camera. I was nervous, right? And so season 2 is really where the camera gets introduced, and it's filmed in a studio. And it was so different, and it called me forward in so many new ways. And I was so uncomfortable, right? But you can see in some of the recordings from season 2 that, yes, I'm uncomfortable and I'm doing the thing anyway, right? Because it was about me still standing for vulnerability and the power of, and using my voice and getting, more and more comfortable and willing with sharing what is behind and underneath this work, the foundation, the very reason why I believe it to be so important. And so season 2 is powerful. It's it's special to me because it's a turning point. And I encourage you to look back at the topics. The topics have been, we talk about a lot of different things in season 2, and tremendous value, and a huge display of vulnerability, and something that I would say will always stand out for me. And I'm proud of it, and the topics that we hit on in that particular season, there's so many gems. So, if you haven't tuned into season 2, go back there, right? Listen to how different it is from season 1. It's evidence of the transformation, right? We as people transform. Now, people always talk about this, and there's a debate. People don't change. And I don't believe that to be true, because when I think about myself and my own journey, of course, there are parts of me that are still the same, but I've transformed and changed in lots of different ways. And I believe that even this podcast, from start to where I am now, is evidence of my transformation. And I encourage you to tune in, because one thing I know to be true is that I always pull myself towards the most uncomfortable places in the name of opening something up for you, to be able to share something that I learned maybe the hard way, a lot of times the hard way, something that I went through, something that I grew through, right? Something that I'm still struggling with. There's lots of things that I'm still struggling with, right? This is not about a podcast where the person who's hosting it, in this case, me, full arrival, and I'm talking to you from this pedestal of knowing all the things. No, that's one of the things that I'm the most proud of with this work, is that I transparently and intentionally and strategically share with you where I am in my journey, what it is that I'm going through, what roadblocks and struggles I'm having, where I continue to push, because it's real. We're all on this journey. Right now, I have a certain amount of training, a certain amount of experience and expertise in certain areas. So I am in a great position to be able to support you. And with that, I invest in my own support, right? So it's one of the things that I have to say I'm proud of, because I do believe it to be why people feel safe and free to be themselves with me, because I'm always sharing, hey, like, this is where I am. This is something that I'm going through, and that is evident in this podcast, in season 1, in season 2, and here in season 3. And so as I was thinking about where I want to go next with season 4, I couldn't help but take somewhat of a stroll down memory lane for season 3. And I want to, in this moment, just share out a couple of things that, I identified in terms of topics that I would encourage you to go back and listen to, segments, exciting moments, special memories, and then say, I'll see you soon for season 4. So when we kick off season 3, one of the first episodes, it might've been the second or the third episode, I do an episode called Adult Attachment Theory, Know Thyself. And I want to encourage you to go back and listen to that. If you are someone who on any level struggles with relationships, has, a history of experiences where you navigated upset, pain, even didn't feel comfortable being in relationship, not being in relationship, right? Like, if you are someone who's uneasy and stuff kicks up for you, there's so much value in looking at adult attachment. And I learned so much about myself when I was introduced to this by a therapist that I was seeing. And so I love that segment, because when I looked back at the timeline and looked at the episodes, it was one that stood out to me, because I was like, wow, this is something that you really, I've had so much breakthrough for self. And I was so excited to bring it to you here in the V Spot. So if you haven't already, tune in. Right? Tune in. There's so much that I talked about pertaining to confidence, pertaining to obstacles as to why you may not be hitting your goals. I speak about ghosting, which is, personal, and I share about, what is behind ghosting, right? And then I had a very special moment where I was able to share the V-Spot space with the person who introduced me to personal development work, which is my friend Maya, who is also my dance instructor. And it was an amazing episode where we really dive into awakening the divine feminine. And it's the work that Maya does. And it was so powerful and so needed. And when I think back to season 3, I really think about how special it was, that I was able to have Maya finally join me here in the V-Spot. So I encourage you, go back and listen, go back and check it out. And what else stands out? So I also introduced this idea of the 4 F's, right? The 4 F's, which is forgiveness, freedom, fulfillment, and fun. And I start to really talk about that. That's what's underneath my work, right? That always sort of drives the ship. It's the guiding light, if you will. It's the reason that I'm encouraging you to call yourself forward. Because think about it, if it's not for freedom and it's not for fulfillment, like what are we even doing, right? If we're not having fun. And for many, forgiveness is really a necessary journey to go on. And so I really hold it to be close and dear to this work. And so we go into all of that. What I also want to spotlight in this particular moment is another epic moment and experience that happens during season 3. And it's the moment that I basically get to share the V-Spot space with a treasured mentor, coach, someone who I look up to, someone who I learned so much from, and that is a segment that's called Up Close and Personal with Boss Lee. And I just want to say in this moment, take a moment to really honor Jessie Lee Ward and her life. She has, since spending time here in the V-Spot, transitioned and is no longer here with us in this physical life. And I'll never forget the moment that I'm waiting here in the V-Spot, and I get the alert that Jessie Lee is in the waiting room. It was one of these moments where I had to pinch myself, right? I had to remind myself that dreams surely do come true, right? Here is a person that I have listened to for years on her podcast, The People's Mentor. Here is someone that I learned from, that I, trained with, that I spent countless hours, I reference in the episode that she is part of my mastermind. And if you're familiar with the book, Think and Grow Rich, then you know what I'm talking about. But basically, it's this idea that you get to form your own mastermind, whether the people are alive or whether they're no longer living. And these are people that you spend time with to grow and develop yourself. Now, Jessie Lee happened to be someone who was on my mastermind, who was alive at the time, right? But since then, I still continue to spend time with her, right? I still continue to listen to her trainings, to learn from her. And to think that in season 3, I was blessed and honored and privileged and gifted with the ability to interview her. And it turns out that I interviewed her 2 days after she received news of her cancer diagnosis, and she had to go for, testing, and her life totally took a turn. And to see her present in this interview, and if you haven't already tuned in, I encourage you to tune into this interview, whether it's on Apple or Spotify or YouTube, and really experience the bravery that is being demonstrated, the vulnerability, the commitment, the passion, the dedication that comes through. Because here is a young woman who receives word that her whole life is changing because she receives a cancer diagnosis, stage 4. And she showed up to the podcast and did an interview that's amazing. And nobody knew it, right? And it's just evidence of the commitment and the passion and the legacy work that she did. And when I think about season 3, I'll never, ever, ever forget this season, because I was honored and privileged to share the space with her for close to an hour, to hear from her, to pick her brain, and to learn, right? And really grow from someone who I consider to be one of the best in the game. And so when I think about season 3, I can't help but reflect on what a gift it was to have a powerhouse, a phenomenal woman, a boss like Jessie Lee Ward here in the V spot. It's amazing, right? And so it reminded me what's possible when you stand for this vision. Right. This is me talking to myself. What's possible when you stand for this vision? I went on a limb and asked her to join me as a guest, and I had no clue if I would ever hear back from that request. Right. I followed the channels to go onto her website and fill out a form and go through the whole thing and share what my platform was about and see if she would be willing to accept an invitation. And to my surprise, she accepted the invitation. And it would have never happened if I wasn't willing to go out on a limb and stand for this vision and really reach for what I believe to be the best. And that's something that I am in a commitment to continue to do, right? But when I think about this podcast and I think about the conversations that I've been able to have and the content that I've been able to bring to you and the special guests that have graced this space, you all tune into the interviews, right? Because I'm going through and really picking people and there's so many people who haven't been here yet either, right? I have a wish list. I've asked people, I'm waiting, for some I haven't worked up the courage to ask yet, right? Some I haven't necessarily found the proper spot or the way to kind of navigate things with. There's a lot involved, right, in planning. And so, the incredible guests that have yet to grace the space, right? I'm celebrating and honoring all of you as well. I can't wait, to share the space with so many different people. My list is growing and it's growing rapidly, but this is all possible because I decided to take a stand for my vision, right? And my vision was to celebrate the power of vulnerability. It was to have difficult conversations, to ask people about healing, to ask people about personal development, to hear what it is that they're up to in the world. How are they trying to leave this place better than they found it? What are we doing collectively to lend to things being different? How are we, going within so that we can really start to be the difference? And that's what this space is really about. And so when I think about season 3 and I think about some of the segments up close and personal with Boss Lee, the Divine segment with Maya, all these different aspects of doing whatever it takes, creating a hotline, right? I don't even know if there's a hotline you can call to, for the V spot and ask a question, share out a struggle, hear from me. Let me get back to you to let you know what is going on. That all happened in season 3. And if you don't know that number, it's 347-676-1956. And the line is open. Right? The line is open. So give it a call. If it's something that I feel is super personal to you, I will respond to you in an email. If it's something that I believe the community can benefit from hearing, I will record a segment to answer a question. But these are the type of things that occurred in season 3. And I think it's so great, right? Like talking about dating, talking about traveling, talking about labor of love, talking about, what I realized in terms of Amsterdam, when I came home from Amsterdam, epiphanies I had that I believe to be valuable in terms of the bigger context of self-exploration and, designing a life that you don't want to run away from, right? Are you currently living a life that you want to run away from? There's something here for you, right? Tune in. And a couple of episodes ago, there was a piece around you being bamboozled. And that has to do with the fact that I believe that healing and personal development work has been given such a reputation that people often think that it's easier to not deal with it and to keep running or going or avoiding. And that's the biggest illusion of it all. And tune into the episode to hear what I'm talking about. So it brings me to, this moment. And I've been thinking about where I want to wrap it up with a bow and where I want to go next, right? And some of that in terms of the next part is still being worked out. But what I want to say to you about season 3 and this very moment is it feels perfect, right? To really pause in this particular moment, to thank you for tuning in to all the episodes that you have tuned in for, to ask you to share, or write a review on Apple. What do you enjoy most? What have you found valuable? Your experience and your feelings of the podcast, it matters, and it's why I opened up the hotline. I wanted to create a way that we can communicate with each other. So when I was thinking about where do I want to pause and really bring season 3 to a close, I realized that it's right here. I realized that everything that I wanted to say for season 3 has been said. I realized that I am looking to go someplace, for season 4, that's going to add another element to the V spot. And I really wanted to take a moment to pause, to allow for the creative downloads, to really re-up on some vision and make sense of a couple of different pieces that I'm pulling together so that I can bring to you season 4 very shortly, with a special twist. If you know that 4 is a special number, and it's absolutely, I want the season to be, special. And so I'm going to look to add a special element to it to have it be different than the rest. And I figured this is a perfect time as we're winding down and preparing to sort of transition to closing out 23, gearing up for 2024. I was having a moment of recognizing, Andrea, this is where you wrap up season 3 with a bow. And so I want to say thank you. Thank you for tuning in, right? I recognize that there are people tuning in from, I'm not sure exactly how many countries at this particular point, but last I checked, it was somewhere in the 20s. And I'm so grateful, you all. There's so many podcasts. The fact that you tune in and listen to my segments and you're here at spending time with me in the V spot, I'm so grateful. So I want to really say thank you. Your time is valuable. You tuning in and sharing, yourself in this way is a gift. I do not take it lightly. I promise to, keep creating what I believe to be valuable for you. I'm looking to bring us someplace different in season 4, and that will all be determined soon. So I won't be away for long. I'm just going to pause to wrap up season 3 and take a moment to sort of close the eyes, be still, and follow, where I'm guided for season 4. And it will start up shortly after this, so that we can, step into a new chapter. And for those of you who have been with me from the beginning, thank you so much. I'm honored, and I've enjoyed this ride. And for those of you who maybe are just getting here, I want to say thank you. It's my hope that you get exactly what it is that you want, that you need, that you maybe don't even realize that you need. But I always do say, and I wholeheartedly believe, it is better when we are together. And so I'm grateful to have this as a space where we get to stay together. And I can't wait to keep creating for what's next so that we can, sort of add another cherry on top and another cherry on top to the experience. And so I don't know. I just want to say thank you. And it's my hope that you all are being easy on you. It's a really tough time in the world, and there's a lot happening. And I want to remind you to take great care of yourself. That may mean pausing, being still, quieting the noise. That may mean spending time with loved ones, allowing yourself to be, supported. And that may mean hug, right? It may mean some music, some meditation, a vacation, right? A massage, some extra sleep. It may mean saying no to somebody else so that you say yes to yourself. Whatever it is, take good care of you. And hear me with this piece. Take good care of one another. People are hurting. right? And I bet that there's someone likely in the next room of your very house that is suffering in silence and going through a lot. So we don't have to look far to make a difference, but take care of one another, take care of yourself. And I cannot wait to see you here for season 4, episode 1, which will be coming soon. And until then, you know what I say, to be continued.